What is good, guys? It's Ray J back with another video, and in this I want to break down what's happening with Tesla, SPY, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers, and break down what's happening with the economic calendar moving forward, what's going on with news involving Tesla in the markets, and what you should be watching for as time progresses. But let me mention that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Moomoo and deposit $100, you are guaranteed 7 free stocks, and our friends very soon, just about 2 weeks. Anyways, today's Mother's Day. I just want to give a big shout outs to all the mothers out there. Most women can be moms, but not all of them are mothers. And for the people who have mothers, please remember them, give them honor, give them respect, and treat them very, very nicely today. Remember to call your mothers, remember to spend time with them, and do something very, very special. But once again, guys, I just want to say thank you to all the mothers out there for your work, for your service, and everything that you've done. You are appreciated, you are loved, and you are going to be respected and honored on a day just like this. All right. So, anyways, about the market's going to open tomorrow at its regular hours, and we're going to see some interesting moves to be made. So, moving forward, tomorrow is going to be Monday, May 13th, 2024, at 9 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So that's 30 minutes before the market ends up opening. We have Jefferson and Mester giving their speeches. Then at 11 a.m., we have the consumer inflationary expectations, followed by the 3-month and 6-month bill auctions at 11:30 a.m. So we'll see what happens with all of this coming out. There's going to be quite a bit of volatility for the first 2 hours of market open, in my opinion, with some data coming out. This isn't that crazy compared to like a CPI, but this might cause some moves here and there. So look for some volatility tomorrow for the first 2 hours. And then for Tuesday, do not forget that before the market opens, we have PPI data coming out. And then we have Jerome Powell giving a speech at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So quite a bit of stuff is coming out for Tuesday. For Wednesday, we have CPI data coming out. That's going to be very important as well. It's going to determine if the market continues to rally or not. And we'll see if we get a rug pull or not, depending on how things go. All right. So Tuesday and Wednesday will be crazy days, lots of important data. Tomorrow is kind of minor, but we do have some data coming out for the first 2 hours, so we'll see if it causes any sort of moves. So far, the Dow Jones is on a big winning streak. It's been green eight consecutive days in a row. It's also gained more than 100 points, and that's actually one of the best weeks since the entire year started. So it's actually very interesting for the QQQ, for the Dow Jones, SPY, the S&P 500, the Nasdaq, all of them together moving in very, very similar trends. However, despite the fact that we've seen the market rally quite a bit, we're at some very, very tough resistance on the S&P 500, on SPY, and the QQ and the others. And we'll see if this leads to anything very, very interesting. It's just something I wanted to note. All right, so moving forward for earnings, as a reminder, this is what the earnings calendar looks like for the upcoming week. Please know that there's not really a whole lot that comes out on Mondays typically. We just have a few like Legend Biotech and a very, very small amount of earnings. But then for Tuesday, we have some important ones coming out. We have Alibaba, the Home Depot, and then Sony announcing their earnings. For Wednesday, we have Monday.com, we have Dole, and a few more. For Thursday, we have Walmart, JD.com, and John Deere, and then the rest are just kind of minor. So lots of retail, nothing too crazy for the week overall, but some stuff are coming out. For news involving Tesla, I'm seeing some things that don't really make a lot of sense. So right here, a lot of headlines are saying Tesla's charging U-turn can mean a lot for the whole EV adoption. Tesla's reversal is happening, this and that. There's a lot of layoffs. And I just want to say that there is some truth behind this because of the fact that Tesla has laid off a large amount of their entire supercharger department. And that's actually not the best of news for them. But to address this, you have to remember that Elon Musk made a big claim, and that is that Tesla's going to be spending $500 million on superchargers this year after firing the entire team. So they're not really just giving up or making a straight up U-turn on the supercharger network. Musk said that the supercharger network will continue to grow, just at a somewhat slower pace. Now, many kind of criticize Tesla for this, as other companies like Ford, like GM are also kind of like joining the game and trying to use Tesla's whole compatible NACS charger and their supercharging stations. But Tesla's kind of addressing this by putting more investments into the sector, continuing to expand it, continuing to help it grow. And for now, they're in a very, very tough place because of interest rates, which is part of why they had to lay off quite a bit of employees and how it's affecting their earnings. But just know that moving forward for the long term, Tesla should be able to continue to let the supercharger network grow, and they should be hiring more employees and such later on once the situation kind of like eases. It's just something I wanted to note. There's also some news right over here about how Tesla's launching a limited time 0.99% APR loan rate on the US Model Y orders. So something's kind of good. This could incentivize more people out there with the super low interest rate. Many people are interested in the SUV. and it's going to go on until the end of the month. So something very interesting. Something worth noting. So with this new incentive, this could actually help boost sales for the Model Y. There's a lot of interest in it, and I think it could be very, very interesting from looking at. The financing could be used on a loan for the terms ranging from about 36 to about 72 months. It's available on all three Model Y trim options. So that could be interesting, and we'll see how this ends up affecting things for demand and such, especially during times like these. Now, for Tesla, I just want to call out that volume is at about 73 million, a little bit below average. And then we saw the short volume kind of going up even more as shorts are piling to Tesla, continuing to manipulate the stock. Cantor Fitzgerald maintains an overweight rating for Tesla, saying it will eventually outperform. The price price ratio is also dipping as Tesla's losing some strength. We're actually at one of the lowest levels we've seen in quite some time because Tesla is still relatively weak compared to the market amidst all this bad news and all this fear. And the Mondays are green about 53% of the time, but Tuesdays tend to be not as strong. Tesla has a tendency of being strong for the start of the week and kind of weaker towards the end of the week historically. And then there's also a tendency of seeing more volatility and more green around 10 a.m. and also around noon. So we'll see if anything changes with that. But with that being said, guys, that is it at least for the data and such. Now I'm just going to focus on the technicals and the charts. So looking at Tesla on the 4-hour time frame, we're still bearish right now. There is a risk of it dipping lower. We're holding support at 167.5, kind of just barely by a needle. But I just want to make it clear that we're just holding this support. And if we do try to kind of rebound, our next resistance is going to be closer to 170. If we lose this 167.5 to 168 area, we could be dipping all the way down to 165. I personally favor that we might attempt to rebound just a little bit. We could see a little back to this 170 area. We might come down first, try to rebound a bit, and then eventually make our way back down lower because the trend on Tesla is still bearish. There's no sign of us kind of like turning back to bullish. If we break past this white trend line right here, if we actually get a rebound and break past it, then yes, that could be a breakout, but there's no sign of that yet on Tesla. The news will come out for tomorrow, so we'll see how this affects Tesla. So make sure you watch the levels. If we lose 165, look for 162.5, then 160. If we turn bullish, watch 170, 172, and eventually 175. I wouldn't be surprised if we kind of dip a little bit more. Just like how we have this wick here, we might see something similar, kind of dip and then rebound a bit. So it might dip a little bit, rebound, try to make our way back up to 170, and we might establish a lower high here, then continue to fall later towards 165 and 162. All right, so look for a little dip, a rebound on Tesla intraday, followed by another rejection and potential drop that could be coming to even lower levels. So I do see some imbalances to fill. I do see a risk of Tesla dipping lower. Look for that dip, a bounce, and then eventually more downside that's coming. The trend is still bearish on the 4-hour. There's no sign of Tesla breaking out yet. So give it some time and just know that that's what it's looking like in my personal opinion. Even the daily chart on Tesla is not looking that great. If I just pulled it up real quick, the daily right here looks more bearish. I do see a risk of this actually dipping a little bit more as we have this wick all the way down towards 166. So I do see a risk of this dipping, and I just want to make that very, very clear. On the 4-hour, we're also kind of contracting, so I do see a risk of this tipping even more. I think that this could end up falling. For SPY, I'm seeing something very similar. So I warned everyone that SPY could push a little bit higher, but between 520 and 525, there tends to be a lot of resistance on SPY. So notice how like we hit 521.51 point, we rejected. We've also rejected off 523. We also rejected off 525. So it's gotten a lot of rejections in this 520 to 525 area, and resistance tends to be very tough. SPY kind of popped about 522.64, rejected a bit, and then during the after hours session on Friday, we actually saw it lose 520, which is a big sign of weakness. So if we dip, watch 518 in support, 516.8, and then 515. For resistance, watch 520, 521.5, and 523, or maybe a little bit under 523 just to be safe. With that being said, what do I see going forward? I wouldn't be surprised if we kind of gap down tomorrow, and then we start to see a little attempt to rebound before we continue lower if this is a trend change. So SPY could kind of open up like this, come down, and then one thing worth noting is that we have this previous resistance, which is going to become support at 518. Then we have our 20 EMA kind of coming up, curling like this. That's going to help us play a game of keep up. So we might kind of test this 518 area. Then we might see an attempt to rebound. But then here's what you want to watch for, okay? Is this going to be a trend change? Is SPY going to rebound and start breaking this high? So if it breaks this high here, we're still bullish temporarily before we could get a rejection. If we establish a lower high and we reject like this, then we could turn back to bearish because now we have a new trend change where we had this high kind of holding. We came down, made a lower high, came down, made a lower high. That's going to be what you're going to be watching for a potential trend change. Okay, so I think tomorrow we're going to come down to 518. I think that's going to likely be tested. I'll see if we rebound or not. There might be an attempt to rebound after that, but watch and see, do we establish a lower high compared to this high relative to that to reject and continue to fall, or do we break it? I do think there's a good chance we might actually fail to break the high and kind of reject a bit. So watch and see. Look for a little gap down, a drop towards 518, a little rebound intraday, and then watch and see if we establish a lower high and start sinking lower. The trend could be shifting. All right. So remember, when I talk about drops in the market, I'm not saying that we just crash instantly, right? If you look at this, we've been making this high here at like this what is this, the 518 area on SPY. We kind of rejected off 518, then continued higher. So we make higher highs and higher lows for the trend direction. Watch and see if we start making lower highs and lower lows as well. Look for a dip towards 518 or rebound and a continuation lower, possibly if we end up failing. That's what I kind of favor a bit more. On the QQQ, there's a bearish divergence as well being established on the charts. We have resistance at this 442 area, maybe a little bit lower than that. We have support currently at 440. I think that our 20 EMA is going to kind of push a little bit higher, getting us closer to that 440 area. Losing that would open the doors for 437 and 435. With resistance at 442, if we break that, look for 444. I personally favor that we have a nice bearish divergence and we could end up projecting from here. So I think we might actually dip a little bit, retest the 440 area, rebound a bit towards 442, then eventually make our way down lower. I find that to be very, very probable. So for tomorrow, we could come down right here, 440 area. That's going to be like close to where our 20 EMA happens to be. Could we get a little rebound? It's always a possibility. And we will see if we make a lower high and start sinking down just like this, right? If you break the high like this, we're back to bullish. If we break this high, we're bullish. And if we reject, we turn back to bearish. I'm favoring this a bit more, something like this, where we kind of come down a bit, test our EMAs, rebound in a fake out before we continue lower. I find that to be more probable, guys. So that's the side I am picking as the most likely possibility. But always look at the levels and what I called out just to be safe for confirmation. But just know that this is the most likely possibility, right? It's always better safe than sorry. So always be prepared for anything as a trader. But just know that the chart does favor rejection off our bearish divergence and such. For Nvda, we have resistance at 900 and 908. We have support at 892, and then this gap fill towards the 880 area, 887 or so. I favor it with this wick forming. We could actually pop a little bit, then eventually make our way down towards lower levels. Look for a test of 900 and move all the way down to fill our gap at 885 or even below that. I find that to be very, very probable. For Aapl, Apple's looking a little bit weaker. We have support currently at 182. We have resistance all the way up towards 184. I wouldn't be surprised if we actually pop a bit and start dipping lower, and we could make our way down closer to 180, the lower 180s in my opinion. So look for some sideways price action, eventually a dip towards 180, and we'll see if things end up happening from there, at least on Aapl. For Neo, I know a lot of people are interested in Neo. Neo's looking a bit more bearish to me. Might actually retest 5, and we'll see if it rebounds off that or not. We could even, if we lose that, I think 4.8 could come and then we rebound. The reason I'm saying a rebound could come after is because we have the Envo event for May 15th, so it could try to bounce. But look for a little dip towards either 5 or 4.8 and see which way it bounces. That could end up being the case. All right, guys, that's it for the main tickers. Now in this video, I'm just going to transition to being very brief and very blunt and quick on my analysis for the rest of the tickers I have in store. So for Palantir, it's looking a bit more bearish to me. We have resistance at 21. We have support at 20.5. I favor it's going to pop a bit and eventually make its way down towards 20 for a little bit of a dip. And we could actually continue to sink as we're looking a bit more bearish. For Supermicro's on a bit of a downtrend. We have support at this 800 area. If we lose this, we have a gap to fill all the way down towards 780. We also have resistance around this this 813-ish area. So I think that the odds for a little pop and then a drop like move and a gap fill all the way down towards 780. For Rivian, we're looking a bit more bearish as well. We could retest 10 and eventually make our way down towards 9.7, then eventually lower levels towards 9.4. So I think there's going to be a little bit of rejection. Look for a rebound and a drop all the way down towards 9.4. For SoFi, remember 50 EMAS resistance. If we do reject off here, we're going to be looking for a dip all the way down towards 6.8 and eventually lower levels like 6.5. I favor a little bit of a move to the downside. We have like a double top like structure and a little bit of rejection. For IWM Russell 2000, we have a bearish divergence. We're going to be looking at 203 as support. If we lose this, look for 202. I favor a move to the downside at least towards that level. But just know that we called out this imbalance fill at 207. So maybe it rebounds a bit and then eventually makes its way down lower towards 203 to start dropping. So look for a little retest of this resistance at 205, then move all the way down to 202 as the most likely possibility. For AMD, we're looking a bit more bearish. We have a gap to fill down here. I think it's going to likely start to sink towards this imbalance fill. So we might be looking for at least 150 to be tested. If that breaks, I expect 145 coming. So that is looking a bit more bearish to me. For ARM, we're approaching resistance at this 200 EMA. It's going to be at 110. If we reject off 110, we're dipping back down to 105, if not lower. If we break 110, we're going to be pushing up for an imbalance fill. We could be making our way up for a breakout. But I just want to note that the resistance is going to be tough at our 4-hour 200 EMA, and we could actually kind of pop and then reject and come down lower towards at least 405 or 105, excuse me. That's the most likely possibility. Coinbase is kind of looking bearish right now. It's been dipping quite a bit. We have 200 as support. If we bounce off that, look for 212 to be tested. If we lose 200, we're going to be dipping down to 193. I favor it dipping down to 193. For Amazon's currently dipping a little bit lower. We have our 20 EMA right over here at 187.5. If we lose this, look for 185 and then lower levels. If we bounce off this, we could rebound towards 190, but I don't really favor that. I think it might be dipping towards 187. Losing that gives us 185 as a strong possibility for Amazon. We also happen to have a bearish divergence, so I do favor that somewhat more. For Meta is kind of flat right now. We have 480 as resistance and 472 as our support. I think it's going to shuffle within this range for some time, and then we're going to be turning back down. So I think that we might shuffle here and eventually make our way down to about 468. Look for a little rejection and some more potential to drop. For Microsoft is once again approaching this imbalance fill. We're going to be looking for 416. If we reject off here, we're going to be dipping down towards about 411. I think it's very important to watch and see what this does. It's looking a little bit stronger than the markets right now. It has some relative strength. So look for a test of 416. If we break that, we could be going up to 420. If we get rejects off this 416 area, we're going to be dipping down to 411. I favored might get a rejection on Microsoft, so we'll just have to wait and see. For Google, we have resistance at 170 and also at 172. If we lose that, we're going to be looking for 168 as support. I think that's looking a little bit more bearish with this rejection, so we could be looking for a test of 168 very soon. The VIX is that key support around this 12.5 area. Ever since the year started, every single time we hit 12.5, we do bounce on the VIX. And overall, we're kind of shuffling at this support right here. So I wouldn't be surprised if we get a little bounce on the VIX later on. That may be significant and kind of signify that SPY may get a rejection alongside the markets. So we'll wait and see. We're at critical support on the VIX, and there's a very good chance it may try to bounce because that's what happened every single time we hit this low this entire year. And if this gets a big bounce, this could be a sign that the market's going to get a little pullback. So watch and see if that ends up being the case. For the 10-year Treasury yield, we're turning a little bit more bullish as well, but this is going to be more impacted by what Jerome Powell says on Tuesday. So if we break 4.52, we're going to be pushing all the way up towards 4.57. This previous support right here as well becoming resistance. So we'll see if we get a little bounce or not. We'll watch this on the 10-year Treasury yield. On the dollar index, we're kind of flat right now. We have resistance currently at 105.3, support at 105.23. We're kind of stuck right now. We'll see which way it breaks. It could actually try to push higher, which could be bearish for the market, so we fill this imbalance. We have to break 105.43 to be bullish on the dollar, which would be bearish for the markets. We'll see for now. With that being said, guys, SPY is showing signs of rejection. We'll watch for confirmation if we get a gap down tomorrow. Tesla's looking kind of weak, so I wouldn't be surprised if we do eventually see more downside. The trend is bearish overall, but we could kind of dip a bit and try to rebound a little bit on Tesla first before we see more potential downside. As of right now, the trend looks more bearish and Tesla is continuing to fall. So look for a little drop, a little rebound intraday before it continues lower potentially, especially if the market starts to continue to follow that trend. All right, so we'll see what the news says about Tesla tomorrow morning. I'll be back before the market opens, so I'll see you guys until then. And once again, please have a very, very awesome Mother's Day weekend. Please take care, everyone. I really appreciate every one of you for watching my videos. Have a great day and peace out.